Theoretically, could I swim to another country for free with no consequences once I arrive?
Depends on the country. In general, in most country, you're not supposed to cross the border out of official border points and get the proper visa. Realistically, nobody would know you swam there and you'd be yet another illegal immigrant. If caught, you'd be asked to leave or be deported. A notable exception, but not the only one, is the European Union, where the border within the EU are fully open. You could totally cross the border 5 times over a 2h hike without seeing any custom agent. No doubt there is similar agreement somewhere else. No, you'd be an undocumented migrant. If you have a valid passport, then depending on which country you land in, most of them, you'll be able to reach out to your own nation's embassy to ensure you get home safely. But in most cases, simply owning a passport is not the same as having an authorized travel visa. Is this the same thing as those undocumented people that show up in boats on Europe's shores? Boat or swimming doesn't matter. They showed up via water route. Those people are definitely subjected to consequences.
Well, I can swim from Germany to France whenever I want, yes.
I feel like there's a lot of "it depends" for this question. Either way, I believe what needs to happen to keep it legal is to pass through a designated customs crossing, which you wouldn't be able to find while swimming, since they're basically almost exclusively on land. Some countries don't need a visa to enter though, so I don't know. I'm mainly commenting to follow this later because now I'm curious. You can look into how this works with small sailing yachts. Basically, you have to report to immigration, and in most countries you aren't allowed to go into the harbor until they cleared you, either via the radio or by boarding your boat. No idea how they would solve this when you swim. So in New Zealand, random people turn up all the time on boats. So we have a bunch of rules for this. You would probably be fine if you went to one of the ports of arrival, had all your paperwork in order, and said, "Yeah, nah mate, no boat I swam. Don't worry, I don't have any fruit on me. I cross the border between Chile and Argentina all the time in places where there is no control. My responsibility is to present myself to a police station once I am on the other side. If I don't make it to a populated area, I don't do anything. Just return to Chile when I'm ready. Obviously returning by the same method. If you don't enter a country through a recognized point of entry, then you are breaking a law. Some countries would just direct you to the nearest legal point of entry so you could be processed properly. Some countries would immediately arrest and imprison you. It depends on how strict they are with border security and where you're from. If you are caught, and your ability to swim between countries without stamina or health effects was discovered, then the country would whisk you away to a hidden facility. You are given a large swimming pool, and are forced to swim while dragging behind you a floating body with a turbine attached, which is then attached to a wire in the ceiling. You are now used as a source of free and unlimited power. My wife swam the English Channel to France. She had to provide passport documentation to the French authorities as part of the application to do it. No one at the beach at the other end. She was there a total of 2 minutes and then got in the support boat, exhausted, for boat ride back. I pointed out to her a 12.5 swim for 2 minutes on a pebbly beach was probably a poor return on time. And it cost a great deal more than the ferry. You just can't tell some people. She got a certificate though. It highly depends on the country. I cross the border on foot daily, between San Marino and Italy. And I've crossed other borders by water as well, between Lombardy and Canton Ticino. There are tri-points where in the span of a few meters you cross 3 countries. In Africa there are 2 tri-points in the span of 150 meters. between Botswana, Namibia, Zambia and Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Generally, in the Schengen area this is zero problem, although it's now suspended in some countries. No, I used to work with a DHS agency that was responsible for patrolling and securing the eastern half of one of the Great Lakes. Anytime we would get reports of someone crossing, we would call the Canadians who would then wait on the other side. Or vice versa. If they crossed the line and turned around, we would be waiting for them to return. If they went a different direction or struggle, we would go get them. If you are going to cross the border, do it correctly at a port of entry. Otherwise you're going to be dealing with a bunch of heavily armed people in uniforms that are highly irritated because you interrupted lunch. Obviously it all depends on the law of the country that you're traveling to. Some countries explicitly criminalize irregular entry, but I think you could get away with doing the same thing that people who travel by boats do if you have your documents. Notify customs in advance that you're coming and present yourself to customs at a port of entry as soon as you enter the country. If you don't have your documents, then you'll probably be treated as an illegal immigrant and deported. Some FAQs on swimming the English Channel. England to France. If you intend to enter France instead of returning to England, you will need to enter as a normal visitor and comply with all the usual regulations. And inform the CSA and your pilot well in advance that this is your plan. You are permitted to land on the beach and then return to your escort boat for the journey back to England. But please note that all swimmers and passengers should carry their passport and any visa, if appropriate, on the escort boat in case they are requested by the relevant authorities to provide proof of identity either before, during, or after the swim. Be aware that escort boats can be boarded and occasionally are boarded. Worked with a guy who was put in a homemade boat as a child with his family to leave the country he was from in the middle of the night and set out for whatever country they ended up in. I don't remember. They were shot at from shore by the military trying to get them to leave. I guess as long as they were in a boat, they could be turned away. They sank the boat and were allowed ashore. He spent more than 2 years in a refugee camp before whatever wrangling was done to get him out of the camp and out of the country. He ended up in the US. I did fieldwork on the banks of the Danube right across from Serbia. We were warned swimming over to the other side would end with the guards shooting you. None of us decided to test the theory. No matter the means you use, entering countries still requires that you obey all associated laws. I don't know the specifics of the laws, but they apply if you walk, swim, jump or fly in. If you obeyed the relevant laws, then you would likely not get in trouble. Imagine you steal a bike but have enough money with you so that you could theoretically buy it. Would it still be a theft? I'm going to say you'd have to go through the same processes and procedures that someone who sailed. There would have to valid visas, travel documents. You'd probably need to go through some form of customs as well. So if you could swim to another country, you can with some prior planning. People swim across the channel between England and France, so they must go through some processes.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.